Okay, so you need to know the difference between real and virtual images. Um, Actually, first, let me go back to the focal point thing, because the focal point is can you have a focal point for diverging lenses too? They're sort of a little bit different though. So here is my diverging lens, and you can imagine that I have a center of curvature right about here, so my focal point for these lenses should be here. But you know that when I have two parallel rays coming into a concave or diverging lens, that they are actually going to diverge. They're not going to focus at the focal point, but they diverge in such a way that if you trace them back, that those rays will trace back to the focal point. And so we have a focal point for a convex lens. The convex lens is the converging lens, but we also have a focal point for the concave lens, which is the diverging lens. I say that because we'll look later at how we can correct problems with human vision, and sometimes we use convex lenses, and sometimes we use concave lenses, depending on what the problem is. Do you have far or nearsighted? Will depend on the type of lens that you need to correct your vision. So, real and virtual images. First of all, real images are images that you can project onto a screen. You can create them with a lens, you can create them with mirrors. The projector in a classroom, of course, that creates a real image. You can project that onto a screen. A virtual image, on the other hand, is an image that you can see, but that you cannot project onto a screen. You can create virtual images with lenses or mirrors, but the best example of a virtual image is probably one that you've seen many times before, and that is the image of yourself in a flat mirror. Though I have an uncle, Mac D is his name. I love that guy. But Mac D, I don't know what's the word. He's challenged in various ways. He got kicked in the head by a mule when he was a kid, and then just sort of after that, it was never really quite the same. But he doesn't like to look in the mirror at himself, so he never looks in a mirror. So, you know, my dad, who lives next door to him, he takes care of him. But doesn't like to shave, doesn't like to look into the mirror. You go into his bathroom, his medicine cabinet is just open all the time because he doesn't like to look in the mirror. Anyway, MacD. Interesting. If you ever get the chance to meet MacD, you really should. Virtual images. You cannot project onto a screen. Imagine that you use a lens as a magnifying glass. This is a good example of a virtual image. However, you can also use a magnifying glass to project a real image. Maybe you've done this before, where I have a magnifying glass, which is, a convex lens. I have the sun over here. Those light rays from the sun travel to the magnifying glass, and then they focus it right here. Um, that is a real image. You may have done this before, where you can use a magnifying glass to set fire. That's just really producing a real image of the sun. So I'm producing a real image. Sorry, I think I said virtual before. This is a real image that I've created with a magnifying glass. It all has to do with where your object is in relation to the focal point. And we'll see that later, where we can put an object at one position and it produces a real image. I put it at another position and it produces a virtual image. Don't worry about that right now. We'll see that a little later. For now, all you really need to know is that real images can project onto a screen and virtual images cannot project onto a screen. Converging lenses, like a magnifying glass, converging or convex lenses that looks like this, they can produce real or virtual images. So when you use it like a magnifying glass, that's a virtual image. When you use it to burn leaves or ants or whatever it is that you choose to do. One time I was showing my son this, he was he was young. Uh, few years old maybe, and it's like, hey, come here, Micah, let's burn something. And so we were doing that with his little magnifying glass, and I was just curious. I was like, I wonder how hot that little dot of light is. And so I just put my hand underneath it, just for a moment, not long. But I tell you, it is quite warm underneath that magnifying glass. I do not recommend it. It hurt quite a lot. Concave lenses or diverging lenses, or concave, or these look like this, can only produce virtual images. You don't usually see diverging lenses very often, but I'll tell you later how to identify them on people that wear glasses.